It was supposed to be just another quiet walk home. The kind Jason preferred. No noise, no people, just the city humming in the background. That kind of solitude had kept him sane over the years. But when he turned the corner near the underpass, he saw a teenager, barely 17, being shoved hard against a wall by a man twice his size, fists clenched, rage dripping off his words. The kid didn't stand a chance. Jason didn't think. He just acted. "Walk away," Jason said, his voice calm but ironclad. The man paused, then laughed. "Oh, look what we got here." The bald knight in shining armor. He was built like a fighter. Tight shirt, cauliflower ears, and a black belt cinched around his gym pants like a badge of ego. Jason didn't flinch. He didn't need to. He stepped between the man and the kid without another word. That's when the mocking began. Loud, taunting, like a show for an invisible audience. But Jason didn't rise to it. He never did. Because for men like him, the fight wasn't about proving something. It was about stopping the next hit before it landed. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from, and if you've ever seen a moment where someone stepped in when it mattered most. The teen watched in stunned silence, heart racing. The thug flexed and postured, demanding a reaction. Jason stood still like granite, letting silence speak louder than any threat. The moment hung in the air, thick with tension, and in that silence, the thug made a choice that would haunt him far longer than any bruise ever could. Jason didn't come from wealth, status, or comfort. He came from the docks, back when the docks still meant something. Raised by a longshoreman father and a mother who worked 2 diner shifts back to back, he learned early that life didn't owe you fairness. What you had, you earned. What you lost, you didn't whine about. You rebuilt. After 2 decades of private security work overseas, quiet missions, hostile takeovers, boardroom threats that didn't make headlines, he retired stateside, choosing a small town outside Austin to disappear into. He didn't need trouble, and he didn't look for it. But trouble had a way of finding men like him, because men like Jason didn't walk past it. He'd taken up a job as a groundskeeper at a local community center. No title, no office, just peace and purpose. He liked the way the place ran, volunteers teaching free classes, teens getting off the streets, seniors gathering for morning walks. A place that still believed in people. The teen he saved that day, Marcus, was one of the center's regulars. Always sketching in his notebook, always on time, always polite. A good kid, the kind who reminded Jason what the world could be if it wasn't always trying to tear itself apart. The man who attacked Marcus, Derek Lane, was known around the area. MMA dropout, flashy temper, big mouth, ran a makeshift dojo out of a strip mall. Claimed he could turn nobodies into warriors, but mostly just bullied the ones who didn't fight back. Jason didn't hate men like Derek. He pitied them. But pity only went so far. And when that man decided to humiliate Jason in front of the entire block, it opened a door Jason had hoped stayed shut for good. Because some lines, once crossed, change everything. Word of the confrontation spread fast. It wasn't just about what happened. It was about who didn't back down. Derek had mocked Jason loud enough for nearby pedestrians to hear, puffing his chest and calling him old man, washed-up rent-a-cop, and background noise. But Jason never took the bait. He stood there unmoved until Derek finally spat out, "Next time, I won't just talk." Jason didn't flinch, just nodded once and walked the teen home. The following morning, the tension showed up early. Parents came into the community center asking questions. Volunteers whispered. Some feared Derek might come back, might retaliate. After all, Jason hadn't pressed charges, hadn't filed a report, hadn't done anything the law could lean on. He didn't believe in turning things over to systems that were too slow to act when it counted. That afternoon, Marcus showed up again. Shaken, but there. He sat on the front bench, sketchpad on his lap, eyes scanning every car that passed. Jason sat next to him in silence for a moment before speaking. "You came back?" Marcus nodded. "You didn't let him scare you." Jason didn't smile, but the corner of his mouth twitched just once. "Then neither should you." But behind that quiet strength, Jason was watching. Derek wasn't just loud, he was proud. And men like that didn't walk away from public embarrassment without trying to rewrite the narrative. Rumors surfaced. Derek was organizing something. An exhibition at his gym. He'd invited the public. Flyers went up around town. Black belt versus pretender. Come watch the real fight. Jason didn't respond. But when Marcus brought him with the flyers, folded and trembling in his hand, Jason looked at it for a long moment and said quietly, "Sometimes the fight comes to your doorstep. Doesn't mean you open the door." The flyer changed everything. Jason didn't need a confrontation, but now the town expected one. Derek was clever in the worst kind of way. He'd masked his humiliation behind a public challenge, a call-out with just enough legal wiggle room to keep him out of trouble. It wasn't a direct threat, but everyone knew who the flyer was about, and everyone wanted to see how it would end. Jason kept his routine, sweeping walkways, fixing gutters, nodding at passers-by, but the whispers grew louder. Some called him a coward. Others called him wise. Derek, meanwhile, doubled down. He took to social media, posting short videos from his gym, mocking monologues, calling Jason a ghost clinging to his last breath of relevance. Each post stacked on the last, building the fire, and Marcus watched it all unfold. Jason didn't tell him to ignore it. He didn't offer empty advice. Instead, he handed the boy a shovel one morning and said, "Let's clear the trail behind the center." They worked in silence, side by side. Marcus finally broke it. "Why don't you fight him? Just to shut him up." Jason paused, hands resting on the shovel handle. Because fighting isn't about shutting someone up. It's about knowing what you're fighting for. But what if everyone thinks you're scared? Jason looked at him. Let them. It was a hard answer. A disappointing one, maybe, but it was the truth. Still, the pressure mounted. The community center got a call from Derek's gym, offering to co-host a self-defense workshop, one where Derek would demonstrate real skill. It was bait, and everyone knew it. Jason didn't bite, but something in Marcus shifted. He started showing up early, practicing footwork alone in the parking lot. He was learning, watching Jason more closely than ever, not for moves, but for mindset. Jason wasn't battling Derek anymore. He was battling the weight of every pair of eyes watching him, every whisper questioning his strength, every silent judgment passed by strangers who had no idea what strength actually meant. But most of all, he was battling the one thing he thought he'd buried years ago, his own pride. He'd walked away from that world for a reason, not because he couldn't win, but because winning had started to feel like losing. Every fight left a scar you couldn't always see. Every confrontation took a piece of you, and when you added them all up, the man staring back in the mirror felt less like himself and more like a weapon that had outlived its usefulness. But Marcus didn't see him that way. The boy began asking questions, not about fighting techniques, but about restraint, control, choices. Why didn't you hit him? What if he had swung at you first? And Jason answered every one, patiently, thoughtfully, because there's a power in not hitting back, he'd say. Most people don't understand that until it's too late. But even as he spoke the words, he felt the conflict building inside. The community center director pulled him aside. Sponsors were threatening to pull funding if there was any chance of violence on the premises. Local news outlets began circling like vultures, hoping the situation would explode into something marketable. Jason stood at a crossroad, the kind that didn't come with a clear direction. Fight and risk becoming the man he left behind, or stay silent and let a liar control the story. In that tension, something old stirred inside him. Not anger, not revenge, but clarity. Because Jason didn't care what Derek thought of him, but he did care what Marcus learned from him. Jason made a decision, but not the one anyone expected. He walked into the community center one Saturday morning, carrying a plain wooden crate. Inside were worn-out pads, faded hand wraps, and an old leather-bound journal. He set it down in the gym room and wrote 3 words on the whiteboard. Quiet Strength Workshop. He didn't advertise it, didn't post it online. But by noon, word had already spread. Marcus was the first to show up, then a few other teens, then a couple of older men who remembered Jason from way back. when. He taught no punches, no kicks, just presence, posture, eye contact, awareness, how to read a room, how to defuse a threat before it needs to be met with force. He taught them how to stand, not just physically, but morally, grounded, calm, present, and people responded. It wasn't flashy, but it was real. Even Derek noticed. He showed up one day, uninvited, stood in the back, arms crossed. Jason saw him, didn't acknowledge him, kept teaching. Derek scoffed and left, but something about it got under his skin. That week, Marcus handed Jason a drawing, a pencil sketch of him standing in front of the community center, arms relaxed at his side, eyes forward, with the words he didn't need fists scrawled underneath. Jason folded it carefully, tucked it into his pocket, and said nothing. But inside, something shifted. He didn't need the crowd's approval. He had already won something far more valuable. He'd changed the outcome without raising his voice. For a brief moment, the air in the town settled. Derek's challenge began to fade into the background. People stopped asking. The tension eased. But just when it seemed like the storm had passed, Derek made a move that changed everything. He didn't go after Jason. He went after Marcus. It started with graffiti. The front window of the community center was spray-painted one morning with the words "Paper Tiger" and a crude drawing mocking Jason. No cameras had caught the act, but everyone knew where it came from. Jason arrived early, saw it, and didn't say a word. Just picked up the cleaner and scrubbed it off. But that same day, Marcus didn't show. He wasn't answering his phone. His usual spot in the front lobby sat empty. By evening, Jason was knocking on the front door of the boys' apartment. No answer. It wasn't panic yet, but it was close. Finally, around 10 p.m., Jason got a call. Marcus's voice was low, shaken. He was at the edge of town. Derek's gym. They said if I didn't show up, they'd come to my house. Marcus whispered. I didn't know what to do. Jason didn't raise his voice. Just said, stay where you are. He arrived 20 minutes later. The gym's windows glowed under cheap fluorescent lights. Inside, Jason saw Derek standing in the ring, surrounded by a handful of the students, grown men with folded arms and smirking eyes. Marcus stood off to the side, looking small and out of place. Jason walked in, not as a challenger, but as something much more dangerous, calm. Derek grinned wide. Took you long enough, old man. Jason stepped between him and Marcus, facing the students. We're leaving. Derek chuckled, loud enough for his crew. What's the matter? Finally realizing silence doesn't scare anyone. Jason turned slowly, met his eyes. It's not supposed to scare you. It's supposed to teach you. The tension in the room rippled like a wire pulled taut. But Jason didn't move, didn't posture. He turned to Marcus. Let's go. And that's when Derek made his final mistake. Derek didn't swing. That would have been too easy. Instead, he tried to bait Jason the only way left, by turning his own teachings against him. Look at you, Derek sneered, hiding behind your wisdom. Teaching kids how to walk away while real men stand up and fight. Jason didn't blink, but Derek wasn't finished. You fooled them, all of them. But me? I see it. You're afraid. That's why you quit. That's why you don't step in the ring. You're just a man afraid of becoming what he really is. For a long moment, Jason said nothing. Then he walked forward, not fast, not aggressive, just enough to close the distance between them. You think strength is about stepping in a ring? Jason said, voice low. It's easy to punch, easy to shout. But try staying silent while someone mocks you. Try holding your ground without throwing a fist. Try not becoming the thing that broke you. That's strength. Derek's face shifted. Just for a second. The mask cracked. Jason stepped back. Turned to Marcus. We're done here. But before they could leave, one of Derek's students, young, eager, and too caught up in the energy, moved to block the door. That's when something unexpected happened. Marcus stepped forward. He didn't push. He didn't yell. He just looked the man in the eye and said, You don't want to do this. And for whatever reason, maybe the calm in his voice, maybe the steadiness of his stare, the man stepped aside. Jason nodded once. They walked out together. Outside, Marcus exhaled. I thought I'd be scared. Jason put a hand on his shoulder. Fear doesn't disappear. You just stop letting it decide for you. The air felt different now. Not lighter, just clearer. Because sometimes the climax isn't in the fight. It's in the refusal to fight. The fallout didn't come with sirens or headlines. It came in quieter ways. Within days, Derek's gym saw a sharp drop in members. Parents who once thought he was building discipline began to question what he was really teaching. A few quietly withdrew their kids. One even posted a statement online, thanking a man who showed my son what real strength looks like without ever raising his fists. Jason never replied. He never had to. The community center, meanwhile, felt different too. Stronger. Marcus had started mentoring younger kids, showing them how to stand up tall, how to hold their voice steady even when their hands shook. Jason watched from the side, a quiet witness to the ripple effect he'd started. And then one morning, as he was clearing leave from the back entrance, he saw Derek again. No crew, no cameras, just a man standing alone on the sidewalk, hands in his jacket, eyes unsure. Jason looked up, said nothing. Derek took a breath. I was wrong. It wasn't a performance. There was no smugness, just a faint trace of a man who'd realized the crowd was never the judge he thought it was. Jason nodded once. Not forgiveness, but acknowledgement. Derek turned and left. That was enough. Later that afternoon, Marcus brought Jason another sketch, this time of the entire community center, with a quote written along the bottom in careful handwriting. Peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of character. Jason didn't need applause. He didn't need to be right. He just needed to know the next generation had someone to look up to, not someone invincible, just someone who refused to become the very thing he stood against. And in that, the conflict ended not with fists, but with purpose. Jason never spoke of what happened at the gym again. He didn't have to. It wasn't about the moment. It was about the message. You don't have to match someone's chaos to overcome them. You don't have to shout to be heard. Sometimes, the most powerful statement you can make is to simply stand your ground, look someone in the eye, and refuse to be dragged into their storm. Marcus understood that now, and that's what mattered. Years from now, no one would remember the flyer Derek posted, or the insults he shouted, or the way he puffed his chest. But they'd remember the man who stood still, the man who taught boys how to become men, not through dominance, but through discipline. Jason had spent his life learning how to take things apart, operations, threats, men. But here, in this quiet town, he was learning something far more important. How to build. Respect. Trust. Legacy. He didn't need a belt or a title. He had something far more lasting. He had impact. And for the first time in years, Jason felt like he belonged. As for Derek, he faded, moved on, some said, tried opening another gym in a different town. Maybe he learned. Maybe he didn't. But it didn't matter. Because Jason's story wasn't about enemies. It was about the people watching, learning, growing. So if you ever wonder what strength looks like, remember this. It's not found in fists or fury. It's in the quiet moments, the held breath, the steady stance, the choice not to strike. Thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from and what quiet strength means to you. Until next time, keep your head high and your heart steady. Because sometimes the strongest men are the ones who never throw a punch.